So everyone, let's talk corporate culture today. I would say in my professional life, I haven't heard one proverb more other than culture is eating strategy for breakfast. And probably that is because it's damn true. From my work at Itonics, where I work as a senior manager in innovation consulting, I see that all the time with a new client. We have right now we have over 300 clients from different companies, from different industries, from different countries around the world. What we see is in the beginning of a project, it's not really the resources that they put in, or not really how they sketch the processes, but in the end, it's about the mindset of the people that you're working with. Are they curious? Do they have a hands-on mentality? Are they open for new things? Are they happy to share? And basically that's about climate, that's about culture. And that's why I'm really excited today to talk to, on the one hand, two great companies who are pushing corporate culture toward innovation, and especially to two great people who are driving their company toward that. On the one hand, Nick from Mars and Tom from Lloyds Banking, who's kind of the home turf advantage today. Let's put it like that. Okay, guys, to start, a little bit, I would say you can do a short intro. Just some questions to guide you there. What I would ask you is, what do you do in your professional life, on the one hand? Then, what brought you there? And why are you fascinated about this often challenging task of pushing in an innovative culture in a corporate?
Go first.
After you.
Okay. So hi everyone, I'm Nick. I lead our global agile innovation human intelligence team at Mars, and we are like a little startup within Mars. We have a Shark Tank, we pitch ideas into our Enterprise Innovation Council, and we have cross-functional teams of people that are working on our pipeline for the next 3 to 5 years. So they work in little scrum teams, test out little ideas and help us work out as quickly as we can what will be worthwhile scaling. So that's a bit about me. How did I get here? Curious, I'm a problem solver. I'm an obsessive learner to my own detriment sometimes, so my head was exploding yesterday in the train on the way home. And I love humans. I'm an off-the-chart extrovert. I love meeting people. I love getting to know what makes them tick, what motivates them. So we work with brand genetics on human motivations, how we understand them, and how we design things that they'll value. So that's a little bit about me. I think I got most of those questions covered.
Okay. What a great start. So, Tom, what about you?
Yeah, so I'm Tom Kegode. I work for Lloyds Banking Group. Have done for quite some time. So I've been there 13 years now, which is like I'm only 32. So there's a point when it was a third of my life when I was thinking this is a big thing. But I've done a number of different roles across the organisation. So I started as a cashier, and I did a number of roles across the branch network as in leadership roles. And then I moved across into innovation about 5 years ago, leading a number of our people innovation initiatives. We brought into, and the way I got into innovation was actually by taking part in a hackathon. So we was part of the team that brought the concept of hackathons into the organisation way back in 2012. And then most recently sort of moved across into the people space. So I've always been sort of fascinated by how do we make it a great place to work, and also that there's always opportunities to improve the way that we do things. We just maybe haven't found that perfect solution yet, so we should keep searching. So most recently, I've been leading our work lab initiative at Lloyds Banking Group, and that has been, as well as sort of managing throughout the pandemic, what we were able to see during the pandemic was that we were able to innovate quite quickly. And as we started to move through that, we were constantly having conversations with our colleagues, and it was almost how do we continue to have that sense of pace and urgency as we start to move out of a kind of crisis of a pandemic. And that's where the Work Lab was born, and it's how we continue to have these ongoing conversations with colleagues to get them involved in the conversation about what's next for work, and how they can continue to input to that conversation. So very much in the future of work and future ways of working space. My team's just changed, and we're now looking at future ways of working more holistically, which includes all that kind of people innovation activity as well across the organisation.
Okay, really cool. So one cool thing also that one of the most established measures like a hackathon to really improve the innovation culture of the company brought you to that topic. It's really cool. Okay, then let's start into the topic a little bit. You already mentioned the pandemic, and when I would kind of summarize what innovation culture is for me in 2 words, it's sharing and caring, something like that. And now a little provocative question to you two. In a world post-pandemic where we have a lot of new work, where we have a lot of remote work coming in, is it even possible to kind of foster an innovative culture under that circumstances? And as you're gonna say yes, why is it so? Or how so?
I found myself in a performance review last year with one of my teams saying you have your best ideas when you are at your most stressed. And I think that's the position that we found ourselves in during the pandemic. We had, as Mars Wrigley, just moved into a whole reinvention of marketing and R&D, and we're moving into this agile model, and we didn't really even understand what agile was and what it meant for a big corporate. So it kind of forced us straight into the deep end of the pool. And I hate the saying, but it really tells the story easily. We were building the plane as we were flying it. And so we were forced to be as innovative as we've ever been. And we had permission, because nobody knew what to do, to be innovative. And there wasn't already a rule book that you were changing. We were building whole new ways of thinking and working. So I think that for us, the pandemic has allowed us to be at our creative best, and we've been lucky. Like, we learn day by day with experiments. We find new tools, we find new ways of doing things, and it's kind of helped us kind of shake off the shackles a bit. So it's helped us a lot at Mars, I think.
Okay, did you implement some measures that might help, let's say, some of the disadvantages of the roadblocks that come with remote work?
Yes, I think. Yes, as we went along and we learned, I think part of what I was thinking about yesterday was, who was it, from Tesla, talking about, those water cooler moments and the power of being in the office. And so part of the way that I design our time together with the team is we talk about creating space and places for informal conversations, or places where you can have a casual collision, versus, there are places where discipline and agendas help in big business as well. So there's ways that we try to foster those different types of connections that you need to have. And I think the challenge is now in this hybrid way of working. So now we work with global teams, and rarely do you ever have a team all in a physical location. How do you make sure you can be inclusive for the people that are dialing in the virtual setting? How do you make sure you've got the tech to do that? Because it was actually very easy when it was a level playing field when we were all dialing in, but to have some people face to face and some people online is tricky, but we're learning day by day how to do that better.
Yeah, and I think it's, the pandemic, it was a similar situation for us. We were forced to innovate. Crisis drives innovation, and the trick is how we continue to innovate as we're emerging from a crisis situation. One of the things that we saw and realised probably the kind of level of innovation over the course of 2 years of about 5 in terms of what we thought would have been possible, right? So we were able to mobilise teams to work from home. We were getting laptops to people that never had laptops before overnight, and that was something we were able to do. So, and I think what was also a real help was the tools. So one of the things I found when it came to innovation, so we do a lot of ideation and encouraging people to come and be part of sort of the creative process. I found that using virtual tools during that period actually democratized innovation. It made it possible for us to reach out wider. So we were doing these sort of short, rapid ideation calls over 30 minutes on Microsoft Teams, encouraging people to use the chat function and share their thoughts and views, which is super helpful, right? Because they're giving you all the ideas and you just copy and paste them when you finish the session, but you can keep a lively session, really punchy, and then you can involve more people. So we were finding we were getting a wider spread of people that were taking part in the discussion and the conversation. I think as you start to then move back, and what Nick was mentioning around the kind of the challenges of hybrid, and there's many of them, right? And I think it's that how do how do you use the tools and almost not rely on everything that you've done over the last 2 years and say, this is how we do it now? How do we take the best bits of that and then the best bits of in person? And that combination, that is hybrid, right? It's a combination of two things.
Yeah.
So that's in the purest sense. So, and that has opportunities to become more inclusive. So you can have richer conversations when you do come together. So how can you use Teams, for example, to almost, if you're running an ideation session, you pose the challenge question before, encourage people to start thinking about their ideas prior to the session. So think about the end-to-end sort of journey that you've got of what the outcome you're looking to achieve is. That way, you've got the opportunity for people that perhaps are more reflective to have some time to think about and start to form those ideas, and then come with semi-formed ideas, and you have a richer conversation around that. So you're using virtual to start that process early so that when you do come together, you can have a deeper, richer conversation around the topic. And I think that's the place we need to get to, is how do we use a combination of these things, hybrid not just being where we work, but we now need to start to move in that ways of working and how we work. And the when we work, I think, is another really interesting one around schedule flexibility, is proving now to be the most important consideration for people when they talk about flexibility. So it's those other elements. We've realised flexibility means we can work from different places. Like we've proved that. Now is the time that we move into looking at how do we apply that same logic from hybrid perspective on the when and the where, and the when and the how rather.
I mean, I think this is a really great definition of the word hybrid, a really great understanding of the word hybrid. So really taking the best out of the two worlds and applying them to what you want to achieve.
Absolutely.
So really cool. Okay, we already jumped a little bit or a lot into what you are doing at your companies. But what I would like to know is, do you have in your company some kind of culture goals? And if you don't have them formulated, what are the ones that you live for? So what are you striving for? What's the vision for your culture that you have in your organization?
Do you want to go first? I'll go first this time.
Yeah. So
Tom, you can go first.
We're in quite an interesting position as an organisation now. So we've got a new CEO that came in about 18 months ago now. So Charlie Nunn's come in. It's a very different field. We've got a new Chief People and Places Officer that's come from a very different organisation, from a fintech background. And actually, it's really refreshing. Like, we're in a process where we are starting to shape and think about things really differently, and challenge the way that things have been done in the past, which has always been quite a challenge. So we've got a number of sort of signature actions, both to do with sort of that hybrid experience, but also creating a first-class experience right across the organisation. Being bold is one of our key values right across the organisation, and being you're putting people first and thinking about it from that perspective as well. And then we've got sustainability goals in there as well, and valuing difference. So it's all of our values, which have just been refreshed, are really sort of focused around those goals. We're also in the process of looking at how do we help our leaders to lead in this new future that we're going into, because there's going to be so many things that need to be unlearned, so that we can sort of, the old ways of working, I call it old work, and old work mentality will not serve us well in the future as we go into this next phase. So, and that's tricky, right? Because we're also in a position where we've got 5 generations in the workforce for the first time ever since 2019, with very different needs and requirements. So we need to help our leaders get up to speed with what it is that's expected of them. Things like empathy, being willing to show when you're failing, like being open to mistakes that you made, and not having that fear and that kind of command and control environment. So, but the problem is, right? These are things that have served them very well and got them to the positions they're in. So that's where we start to see people mandating days and coming back in the office. That's because it's like, I'm not in control, so I'm going to tell you to do this. Yeah. And then what we see is that fundamentally doesn't work anymore. Like, people have shifted. Sure. They've just changed. So I'm like, I spend a lot of my time trying to stop executives like making knee-jerk decisions that's going to impact them and the engagement of the wider teams. But it's a challenge, and I think that's how we are now starting to get our leaders up to speed, but also then get this groundswell of catalysts across the organisation that can be those change makers and challenge the way that we do things as well.
Yeah, and from what I see, we have one chain of such change makers sitting here right now in front of us. So what about you, Nick? What about Mars?
I'm sitting here just taking some deep breaths so I don't say exactly what I think. Try and filter it a little. So I think we are desperately trying to become a learning organisation, one that can learn and optimise and pivot. And we find that really tricky when you have to mobilise 130,000 associates around the world. So for us, underlying, we took a lot about mindset and behaviour shifts, and mindsets first to be able to shift the behaviours. So we have 6, but for us in the part of the business that we work within, we talk about failing fast, we talk about progress over perfection, and we talk about trust beyond. So we went into a really different way of working, that I think is so powerful, the multidisciplinary. I heard that word maybe 20 times yesterday. We have cross-functional teams. It takes a little while for cross-functional teams to work out how to work well together all the time. And to find ways of working and to create the right space to have the right conversations as well. So I think those mindset shifts have allowed us to start to shift behaviour across the organisation. We're a business that is obsessed with alignment, bringing everyone on the journey, where we're still quite relationship based, and I think it's quite powerful, and it's allowed us to move a lot more quickly, to have permission constantly to say to people, just tell the minimum number of people that you need to tell. You do not need to tell half of the organisation. Get the 10 people in the room who will really make a difference and work with them on this. And then tell the others as you're starting to make the changes, or I guess make sure they feel like they've been part of helping you shift the dial as you implement and execute. So for us, the culture has shifted to absolutely one of collaboration and of just constant learning and optimisation. So I think we'll be better off in the long run, but it's tough. Our leadership still wants certainty. I mean, we've shifted into a model where I heard someone say it yesterday, it's very easy to get people to align on the problem. So frame the problem well, and yes, all the leaders can always easily agree that they're the problems to solve. We've now got permission as an organisation to be doing all of these little experiments in the real world. And so then we've got maybe 100 products sitting at proof of concept. But now to get the regional presidents on the hook to invest in these big bets is really tough. To get them on the hook to say, this is what I'm going to back. Out of all of the things on top of my core, we're focused on new adjacencies, new capabilities. Of all the things that you could invest in, you've got a choice of 5. Where are you putting your chips? Wow. It's really, they find that intimidating, and it's tough. So we haven't fixed that yet. I'm now getting ahead probably of the questions you're about to ask.
No, it's fine.
I think
we're quite free about that.
those shifts are so fascinating when you really start to stare at them, and those kind of I think it's Microsoft says around going from a know-it-all to learn-it-all organisation, and I think that's a really. But also, there's elements of this kind of the old work that don't serve us anymore. So how do we work more in the open? Like you're saying, having the smallest amount of people possible to book to work, but actually make everything visible.
Yeah.
And then if people want to know stuff, they can go in and find it. They don't have to be part of that call with thousands of people that don't actually speak about anything. But I need to be part of that. And I think it's just, it's a number of shifts like that need to happen organisationally, which we're starting to think about, and how can we start to enable some of that more open, working in the open.
I mean, making it visible is a really great term about that. Because just a small anecdote from my side to that, earlier before I joined Autonix, I did my PhD and I worked at a competent research center for business models in the digital world. And we did one conference, and a lot of times with a lot of people from German industry. So a lot of engineers. And one time we had the head of innovation, the global head of innovation, Frederick Pferd from Google there. And just by the wording that was used in the talks, I think in the German senior managers from let's say automotive, from manufacturing, from electrical equipment, you perhaps heard the word learn 1 or 2 times. For Frederick, that was in 15 minutes, let's say 20, 30, 40 times kind of. Just the wording that is used and to make it visible. And that leads me also to the next question, making it visible. So one thing that I experience a lot from, also we work with a lot of guys like you who are really driving innovation in the company, but who have to report to decision makers. And there's kind of a problem that is often phrased as innovation theater. So it's difficult to make really tangible the value that you create for the organization. So my question would be: do you have some? How do you evaluate your progress? How do you do you have means for doing that? Do you have means for evaluating about what you achieved, and also for reporting that to top management?
It's a hard one. I'm not sure if I always find it tricky to.
It's really tricky. It's really tricky
try
also
and measure, and then multiple.
Yeah, sure.
So it's just that current, like, the things we're trying to measure now are they're so dynamic. It's really hard to be able to provide that, and I think it's almost, you have to provide these immersive sort of experiences for people to have those moments together, and sometimes that is that kind of internal thought leadership, which is some of the way that we're doing it. And that, like I said, the leaders program we're going through. But yeah, I've always sort of struggled, even when I was leading sort of people innovation teams, of having been able to pin down what those measures are. I'm not sure if you found a silver bullet.
We haven't. I think but that's the point, right? That I think there's no one size fits all. I think it depends on the stage you're at in your journey. So what you're measuring, even just within innovation, what you measure as successful, or the metrics you track at the beginning of an idea versus as you're scaling it up, should change.
Sure.
I'm much clearer about what you shouldn't measure, and what you shouldn't hold us to.
That's also something interesting.
As we talk about innovation, and the first time we're getting experiments out, we're very bad at killing projects because we get very attached to them, and we want to just keep on finding ways to make them work and keep them alive. So I wish we were better at that, but we're not. But also, I can tell you that if you've spent time with your Scrum team the last 12 weeks and you're getting something out into the real world, the worst thing you can do is say, we're not going to take this project anymore because it didn't hit the rate of sale that we thought it might, or because it's MAC dilutive. I think I've heard a couple of people say that today. Efficiency is one of our principles at Mars. We've spent 50 years making the most efficient Mars bar or Snickers bar that we can. So anything that we do is not going to be as efficient and deliver the max straight away, or margin, is probably now using Mars lingo, margin. And so is there a path to a better margin over time? But if you are putting this thing out in the world, why are you putting it out there, and what do you need to learn? What do consumers like about this? What don't they like? Can they find it in store? Do the retailers like it? Is it a value prop that works for their business model? And is this the right business model? Like, we've launched things and we've put them into a channel, and then we've realized a completely different person is buying this. So actually, this is not the right channel. We're going to prioritize a different route to shopper for this product. So I think if you get all the way to a stage where you've got your MVP and you're testing it in the real world, the worst thing you can do is give it old-fashioned metrics to kill it straight away. Can you tell I'm passionate about that?
That's really great. And guys, time is flying as hell. We have 5 minutes left. So no, it's really great. It's really great to have such a conversation, and also to tackle such topics where we don't have an answer yet, or where we know what not to do. That's also really helpful, because a lot of times corporates are doing that.
Yeah, and I think, so one of the things that I've been doing recently is, and I think this is so important, is almost just get stuff out there as soon as you can, particularly when we're looking at internal stuff. So from a people perspective, for hybrid, for example, created a document, like a live link document, saying, send that out, this is your hybrid toolkit. These are some things to try, and then just put it in the hands of people as soon as you possibly can, and say, like, this is not finished. Like, it's not going through all the formal governance, right? We're building this together. Let's use this as a toolkit and create and build on top of it, and then people can be part of that process on an ongoing basis. But also, then you start to see these emerging people that are like front runners of this stuff, because a lot of the change, that kind of, those early adopters, you really need them to be helping to sort of share that message across. So I think it's trying to get stuff in the hands of people that can actively use it and test it and build on it and iterate on it. I think it's going to be more and more important, because the one thing we're certain of is, like, we're in a period, this change is constant. I mean, look at like what's going on in government, look what's going on around the world. Like, that change is going to continue. So we need to be nimble and able to sort of iterate and build on things, rather than wait and deliver something in a big bang.
Okay, definitely. So first of all, thanks guys. It has been really inspiring. And to end on the inspiration note, I need to ask you one final question. Nick knows what's coming, so she will be first, and you can then think
Okay.
about that. Because we as a company, we have the branding of Innovation Rockstars. We call our clients Innovation Rockstars, and we have also our CEO runs, Christian Mühlroth, runs a podcast on Spotify, also called Innovation Rockstars. And there one question, the final question always, and that's why I have to ask you that too, is in the last several years, you can pick the time frame as you want, what was your personal innovation rockstar moment? Maybe a success story, maybe something you have learned. What was it? And as Nick had some time to prepare for that,
I'll go
he
first.
goes
Yeah,
first.
please.
And I've got a
John, you
cryptic
can
answer.
think about that a little bit.
Because when you mentioned that outside before, I thought, oh, what's my rock star moment? And then I was like, what big innovation do I feel most proud of that you'd all know? And actually, I am much more interested in micro moments. And so part of what I am most proud of, and there's a number of people in the room here today that have either worked with us as agency partners or who are helping us do this in the business, is the movement that we have started and the impact that we can have, even though we're a community of 200 that sits in the centre, the way that we can influence ways of working, thinking, the ways that we can encourage people to experiment and take risk, even if they're in a more traditional part of the business, is what I think we're most proud of. And I'm proud that we just never stay stagnant, that I think agile innovation, the definition, learn and optimize and improve the value and pivot where you need to. And we're constantly learning, and I'm constantly spotting little fires. I'm like, this is a little fire, could be a big bushfire soon. So how do we make sure that we get on top of that? So I feel like we've created a part of the business that if you've worked in big corporate for a long time, all of the things that frustrated you, you can start to have permission to do. We haven't cracked scaling yet, but I'm most proud of the fact that we've built this place that people want to come and work and be part of. So that's my rock star moment.
Okay, thank you, great.
Yeah, so I think for me it was a little bit of a journey from I mentioned the sort of the work lab concept. So it was an idea that I had. I was like, we could definitely continue this conversation and bring colleagues on the journey. So it was just started at about this time last year was when I had that idea. Developed it over December and launched it in January. And started with wanted to sort of find these like work heroes, I called them, right? People that are out there that want to be part of this change. Grew that community from 0 in January to up to sort of 700 over the first few months, and now we've got that to about 5,000 people that's across the organisation. So these are all people that want to be part of this discussion.
That's impressive.
So and it's so that just trying to sort of create that Pied Piper moment of finding people that were like-minded. And sort of wanted to be. So I give myself the tagline right across this organisation as the professional troublemaker. So I'm there as a professional troublemaker and a friendly disruptor to our executives to help them challenge themselves and think a little bit differently.
The friendly disruptor from the neighborhood. Or something.
Yeah.
Story.
Yeah. That's the one.
Okay, cool. Big applause for the two here.
Thank
Great
you.
insight.
Cheers.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.